All righty. So good morning, everybody. Welcome to Illuminate 2021. I don't know if this is your first session. I think it is, of the agenda. My name is Scott Bauer. I'm a technical marketing manager. So basically, I have one foot in the camp of the engineering side of the world and the other foot in the marketing side. So spent most of my career in security, in cybersecurity, since it started up way back when we thought about connecting these things called PCs to the mainframe, and why would we ever want to do that? But been around for a while, and today we're going to be going through Sumo Security Analytics Workshop. It's an hour-long session, and basically this is what we're going to be covering. Introduction. I'm not going to take 8 minutes. If I take 8 minutes to introduce myself, we'll be having people dropping off the call. So I'm not going to do that. So introduction of the course itself. We're going to get into a demonstration of the product. And the reason why I want to do a demonstration early on is when we get to the labs, the things that I will show you in the demonstration will actually be very similar to the stuff you can do in the lab. So you kind of see the end product first, and then we'll take a step back and go through the different products in the different labs themselves. We'll have one for monitoring user logins from different IP addresses. Now, this is a common problem or a common desire for pretty much all of our customers, that they want to know who's logging in. Now that we've kind of all moved to digital, most of us have moved to digital and virtual meetings and virtual locations. We need to go in there and understand where these people are logging in from. So that's one of the things that we'll be building is the search or the query that actually will give that to us. Second lab we'll be doing a little bit shorter. That'll be doing a threat intel lookup with sample IOCs. So we'll be leveraging and installing the applications that actually come out of the box for our customers, and we'll go through that. Next one down is CrowdStrike, right? That's our threat intel app itself. So using CrowdStrike, which you get with our product, we'll go through that as well. And then we'll go to next steps in learning. So that's the overall agenda. I've introduced myself. In the Zoom room itself, I have Stacy, who is going to be my key moderator. She's the one who's going to keep me on target, hit me in the side of the head if I go off the rails and pontificate too much. But also she'll be the one looking at the questions as they come in. So please post your questions to the chat channel. We will do our best to actually answer them in line as we go through this stuff. And if it needs to be discussed in the call itself, Stacy will step in and bring up the question, and we'll talk about it during this session. And at the very end, we'll be going in and doing next steps. Stacy, that sound good so far? I'm keeping in line.
Yeah, I didn't know I get to hit you upside the head. That's awesome.
Well, it's virtual. That's the only way I said that.
Right, it's long distance.
It's a virtual smack. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off my camera, and we'll start the session. Okay. So first of all, tchotchke time. If you attend a SOC workshop later on, you actually get a Sumo pair of socks. Now, I believe this is available international. I think there's some issues with India. So if you're in India, we need to figure out how we can get you a pair of socks. But in general, if you intend a full hour session, either security or CC workshops, you'll get these cool looking pair of socks. You just fill out a form, and this is not a sales and marketing form. You know, we will obviously be getting your information, but we're not going to be sharing it, and we're not going to send you a whole bunch of marketing stuff. We're just going to send you a pair of socks, and they'll be shipped within 5 to 7 business days. So part of what we do today in this hour-long session is give you enough of hands-on experience to get your interest, right? To actually step up and attend a fuller certification course. And they're free, right? So, you know, online, you can go there and you can log in and look at the agenda and when they're available, etc. So let's now start diving into our session. So Sumo Logic, a long time ago, came out with this concept, or we were one of the ones that came out with the concept of continuous intelligence platform, right? So one of the challenges we have in today's industry is how do we tie in development, operations, security? How do we tie all this together so we can provide the solutions that our customers need But at the same time, we also have embedded in there enough metrics and enough tooling that's going to give us visibility into the applications and how they're running. It's going to give us information and integration with security, and we'll touch on that. And we get into things like business intelligence and global intelligence. So how do we do this? Well, first of all, we use your data, obviously, right? So we use your application data. We have collectors for your microservices, for AWS, GCP, Azure. So we have ties into the majority or almost all of your digital assets or your digital applications, either with a hosted collector or you can install the collector in the device itself. So there's different ways of doing that. We'll touch a little bit on that during the demonstration. So after we gather all this data, we now start to look at it and parse it with our analytics. So first of all, we're native cloud born, which is great. We didn't lift and shift and pull all this stuff together from a on-premise to a cloud environment. So we can actually take advantage of the elasticity and scalability built into a cloud native application. So you're not having to worry about standing up more devices, et cetera. And most of us have moved to the cloud, but we didn't just take a monolithic application that was on-premise and move it into the cloud. We actually started in the cloud first. We have embedded machine learning, so we can start looking at things like anomalies, right? So if I'm looking at my data, how do I know if it's good, bad, or ugly? So we actually have machine learning, advanced analytics that's going to allow us to understand your data, your specific data, and come up with different metrics and visibility applications that's going to show us one way or the other of how things are running. Obviously, tying all this together is security and monitoring. Now, what's really cool about this, if you look on the right-hand side, these are the certifications that we've actually achieved. So FedRAMP, HIPAA, PCI, et cetera. So we know as our customers move their applications to the cloud, we're dealing with a shared security environment. When it was on-premise, you guys handled the security yourself. You put firewalls, you put all your applications and your devices in a known entity, a known environment, and you protected them. But now that you move to the cloud, whether it be AWS, Azure, GCP, it's a shared security responsibility. So your cloud provider will be securing their physical environments, but it's up to our customers to actually secure and monitor their applications themselves. So you need to really be aware of the different certification attestations that we have for our product. The next layer of this is probably the most important one is your people, right? DevOps, engineering, IT ops. We don't limit the number of users who can come after your data, right? So depending on their use, depending on what they're trying to do, we have many different solutions or offerings integrated with the actual offering itself. So whether you are a SecOps manager or you are DevOps or you're in engineering, we'll have different types of reporting and dashboard that's going to give us the right information at the right time and the right location. Because as you know, most of our security these days is a bunch of monolithic applications. You've deployed IPS, you deployed a firewall, you deployed endpoint, et cetera, et cetera. So we need to actually consolidate all this information into one location as best we can and provide you the data that you need. So how do we do that? So if we read this slide from left to right, it's kind of a building block. I like to talk about it as a building block. So on the left-hand side, audit and compliance. So here, we're getting all the information around your application, how they're working, how secure they are, have you had any kind of breaches, et cetera, et cetera. And the really cool thing about the left-hand side is it removes a lot of the heavy lifting that many of our customers have to do to get audit compliance. So there's a rapid time to value if you deploy our audit and compliance solution. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier, the data's got to come in first. After we get your data, we parse it, we anonymize it to some degree depending on the environment, and we actually give you those types of reports. The second one is where we're going to be spending the majority of our time this morning, and that is security monitoring analytics. So here we have the ability to do deep search. So one of the use cases that we'll have is, we have an IP address that seems to be beaconing, And how can I actually look at all of my different security solutions and my applications to see the blast radius of what this IP address has been doing? And we actually connect the dots as we start to look at how all this stuff ties together. The third one to left to right is our Cloud SIM. So this is our cloud-based SIM platform, obviously. And basically what we do here is we start doing intelligent cross-correlation. So instead of having our security engineers or a SOC analyst monitoring and analyzing reams and reams of data and trying to see the needles in the haystack, we actually provide that level of service in there. And later on today, if you get a chance, please attend the SOC's the SIM session later on. And the last one, this is the new entry into our product line, is Cloud SOAR. All right. So now that we've gone from left to right, we have a massive amount of data. We've parsed it. We've given us the information that we need from a security and for an anomaly detection, and we're tying it into global feeds for security information from a threat intel point of view. We've moved it to Cloud SIM, that we've kind of consolidated and reduced and prioritized the alerts that you need to deal with. Cloud SOAR is kind of the nirvana at the end of this, is how can I actually map out in a playbook what to do if certain things are seen? What is the standard amount of information I need to gather to actually do an analysis or to make a decision? All right, so Cloud SOAR has now been released from Sumo itself. So now, if we tie this stuff together, specific to security analytics, these are the building blocks that we're going to use. On the left-hand side, you see a search, and we're going to be doing these in the labs. So we actually have called out the data that we want to use. We're using JSON farming to actually get in and assign the different fields within the JSON file and mapping them to what we want to map them to. And then we start putting some logic in there. So the searches are the building blocks, the base of what we need to take a look at. The middle are the dashboards and alerts, right? So after you build the searches that you want and you want to use on a regular basis, you can actually save those not only as the search itself and dealing with text, and that's about it. You can actually save those and build dashboards from them, and we'll show that during the demo. The last piece is the advanced analytics. So things like geo lookup or doing mathematics on certain parameters, certain fields that we get. So using these three technologies, we get the ability to actually drive intelligence to your SOC analyst, your security engineers, etc. Another great place of value within the Sumo portfolio is our applications themselves. So out of the box value is one of the mantras that we have. We want to drive, you past, buying the demo, which, has been talked about in the past. Yeah, you bought the demo, but are you really using it? Right? We are providing out of the box solutions so you can actually get value day one. So these are around security analytics and threat intelligence. We have ties into cloud-based applications like Box. We have security integrations with vendors like Proofpoint and Palo Alto and Cisco, Zscaler, et cetera. And we'll go through these a little bit when we get into the application section of the labs themselves. Now, this is an example of one of the apps, right? So we're taking the intelligence from CrowdStrike, and you don't need to pay for it, right? Well, you're paying Sumo for the overall service itself, but you get CrowdStrike with that feed or with that offering. And when we look at CrowdStrike, we can actually look at things like detecting threats by IP address, by file name, URL, domain, etc. So Sumo does an amazing job in pulling your data together. It does an amazing job on looking at things like anomalies and application flows and what's working and what's not. So we tie that with the great intelligence coming from CrowdStrike, and it's the best of both worlds. So that's it for slides, 15 minutes. I'm going to get into the demo, and then we're going to start getting into the lab themselves. So again, remember, as I said earlier, questions, please post them to the chat window, and Stacy will help chase those down. So what I'm going to do next is a quick demo. All right. So when you first log in, this is the base window that you're going to see. This is kind of the starting point of your experience within the Sumo platform itself. So if I go in here, we can see where we left off. I got a whole bunch of searches in here that we've used in the past. I can select on those. I can add all these different pieces in the middle, logs. I can actually look at metrics and do, data harvesting on metrics, etc. What's really cool, this is kind of like, trying to get more people excited and trained with our products. Built into the interface itself, we have a Learn tab. So you can actually go in here and see the different labs and different trainings that we have. A location for cheat sheets. This is always a great one. So if you're doing a lab or you're setting up a new environment, come into the Learn section and grab the cheat sheets, right? It's going to give you, all the operators that you're going to be using within a search or a log itself or parsing itself. All right. So I'm going to go over to my library and I'm going to show you what one of these looks like. So this is, 1 second here. We got lots of them in here, so let's see. Hold on 1 second. In my desire to clean up my desktop, all right. All right. So here's a sample of one of the dashboards, right? So here we have AWS CloudTrail. So we're pulling in the native CloudTrail logs themselves, and we have console logins, right? So very quickly, I can look at this graphical map and say, hey, am I supposed to be seeing logins from all over the world? Now, this is a demo training environment, so we have a lot of data. So there's a lot of dots over here. If this was an international company, this is good. But if this was a US-based company or a Europe-based company and you're seeing the level of logins from other locations, this may be something you want to take a look at. So if I go in here and actually look at the filter, and we're going to do this in the lab, this is the base filter, right? So as I said before, you can take your filters that we create in the lab, and we can go in here and actually create dashboards themselves. So CloudTrail being a logging solution for logins into AWS, logins from outside the US. We saw Mike, Joe Schmo, I think that's what it's called. And then logins without multi-factor, logins with multiple IP addresses, et cetera, et cetera. So, I just want to give you a quick view of what one of the dashboards look like. Excuse me. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to start getting into the lab itself. So let me go back to here. So what everyone wants to do right now is with your browser, go to service.sumologic.com. When you go there, you're going to go ahead and your email address, the login is training, the plus sign, the word analyst, and then there's 3 pound signs, right? This will be a 3-digit number of your choosing. 001, 10, whatever. Use, the month and the year that you were born. If you're a 007 fan, put 007, et cetera, et cetera. So you're going to log in with that, replace the pound signs with a 3-digit number, and then the password is sept2021 exclamation. All right. So I'll give everybody a couple of minutes to work their way in and get into the lab itself, and then we're going to actually start walking through the PDF file. So inside the chat window, there is the PDF for the lab itself. There's a secure inside _ security analyst. So go ahead and open that up, and we will start to step through the lab itself. So let me get out of here and get to our lab. Give everybody a couple minutes. If you're having a major problem.
Field password. So it is SEP 2021.
Oh, excuse me. Document needs to be updated. It's SEP 2021.
Yep. The one in the chat's fine.
All right. So the first one is we're going to start getting used to dealing or working with the search capabilities, the filter capabilities. So we're going to go in here and we're going to create a query that's going to go ahead and look for IP addresses that are being logged in by a single user, right? So if you think about that, the use case would be, I'm trying, has a user account been compromised? Are they logging in from different parts of the world, et cetera, et cetera? So what I would recommend doing is copying the entire chunk of data. So I'm going to go ahead and grab it from the source down to the row number, right before the number 2. Copy that. And when you're done copying that, I'm going to go in here and click on New, a new log search. Now, a new log search, you're starting off with an empty workspace. There's a field up here that has lines on a clock. Go ahead and paste your content into there. Of course, for some reason, my copy and paste did not work. Give me a second. All right, so you should have, starting with underscore source category, and we'll go through this. Now, the thing you gotta watch out for when you're copying and pasting, depending on the solution itself, you're gonna get some outliers. So look at your filter, and it should be a bar and then some parameter, some request, some action, etc. So in mine, when I copy and pasted it, good old PDF files, Sumo Logic Confidential should not be part of my query. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete that. All right. So I'm on a Mac. What's the key again on Windows? On the Mac, it's Option. Basically, what I can do here is hold the Option key down. The Alt key is on Windows. So you're gonna take your mouse and you're gonna go to the line right under source category. You're gonna hold down on Windows the Alt key, and if you're on a Mac, it's the Option key. This will turn to a plus sign, and then drag your mouse down so you have a flashing bar in front of everything. When you get that, put a double slash, and that's basically commenting that stuff out. All right, give everybody a second to do that. So, first piece, somebody is locked. If you go to an account and it's locked out or you can't get in, just use a different number and then go from there. Okay, so I'm going to step our way through this. The first line is we're defining what data we want to pull from. So source category, and then labs, CloudTrail. Now, if you were just typing this, you would actually, it does auto-complete. So let me just go ahead very quickly, go back to, I just want to show you what this is. So labs, AWS CloudTrail, if I go to manage my data and collection, you don't need to do this. I just want to show you where it's being pulled from. Here is the list of collectors and the sources of data coming in that's running in our lab. Okay, so when I say collector, or excuse me, when I say the source, that's assigning it to a collector. Now, if I go to the end and I press enter, this is just going to grab the data from CloudTrail, from our CloudTrail logs, and importantly, it's anding with console login. Okay, so it has to be coming from CloudTrail, and the log line itself has to have the word console login in there. When I scroll down to the bottom here, we see the JSON file format coming in. We see the pairings of keywords and values, and in here we have event name console login, right? Let's go to the second line. And this, you probably have to remove both of them because it's continued. So in the JSON formatting, these are the fields that I want to pull: event type, event name, source, IP address, etc. So go ahead and press enter on that one. All right, so across the top, we have those different fields that we want to pull from. The next piece is we want to map those fields to values in our search. So you go back out of JSON. Another quick one. When you're in the lab and you go ahead and press enter, enter by itself runs. If you want to press enter to go to a new line or to use it like a normal editor, you have to do shift and enter to get it to work. So now we've gone in here, we've told which fields from JSON that we want, and we've gone in and mapped those to the different fields. So we have time, additional event data, and in here we have the fields within there. So we have MFAUs, mobile version, login, etc. Now we're trying to find out of all the logins. Now we have all this information. So we define the source of the data. We've defined what we want to pull from the log. We've mapped that to the fields namings that we want. And now we're start putting some of the conditional stuff in here. So I'm going to say where console login equals success. All right. So let's go back over to the lab itself and let's make sure we're all on the same page here. So what we've done is we've gone in, we've named the data, we've parsed out what we want, we have mapped it to the fields that we want. We said, show me everything where console login equals success. And now we're going to use the word count. It's a mathematical. We're going to count based on the Amazon resource name and source IP address. We're going to sort that out by ARN. So let's go ahead and do that. All right. Now you're seeing here, we're starting to see a different format. All right. So we have the ARN, that's what we're sorting by, the source IP address, and the count. I'm going to go in here and uncomment the rest of them. So now what we've done is we've gone in, we sorted by ARN. We are totaling up by IP addresses logged in by that ARN, or by that resource. And we're mapping it for total is greater than 1, right? And then we give it the fields count and row num. Has everybody seen that so far? So the next piece is we're going to take that IP address or those IP addresses, and we're going to use a service that we tie into that's going to map the IP address to a lookup table on latitude and longitude. And then we're going to do a count by latitude and longitude. So here we're going to take these two lines. Now remember, at the end, you're going to hold the Shift key and press Enter. And now we have a list of the mappings of latitude and longitude. Now, as I said before, we were going through the lab earlier, we can actually take this data and create a dashboard. So let's look at the different ways we can look at this data. And the one I wanted to show you was the mapping capability. So if I go over here to this
Hey Scott,
map
I've got
icon.
a question from the audience, and I just wanted to check in with you. It's regarding the query and the fact that we're taking the value 1 as RONA in order to say whenever the total is greater than 1. And so the question's just around kind of why is 1 as RONA in this query? Sorry for interrupting.
I think it's just presetting the row number to 1 per line. Okay. So we go back over here at the bottom. We have latitude and longitude count. And I'm going to go ahead and click on the map. And as I said before, that map that we saw earlier, that is transposing our raw data from a count point of view. Here is the map that we talked about. Has everybody been able to get to this point? Now, if you don't have the time today, or maybe you're not keeping up, or something has happened, Stacy, we're allowing them to keep access to this for how long?
So the password will change at the end of the month. So you have this week to go through and do these exercises. But again, if you ever need anything, the training environment is accessible to you through the product. And all you have to do is go up to that home icon at the top. And certification is right here. And if you push that certification button, it will take you into the training environment. Slowly.
It's always good to do a live demo in front of a crowd.
I know.
There we go.
But as you notice, there are training passwords right here. We update those monthly. So while you do need to kind of finish with this password at the end of the month, the October password will be posted here for everyone that has access.
Now, it's important. You may log into an interface, and there could be a lot of other work people have been doing. Now, we try to keep the training environment up to date and clean, but there's going to be times where you could log in and you can see what I'm showing you right now. Right? That's a lot of different tabs, and it's somebody else's work, and you know what? I don't want to deal with this. If you go here and you right click, you can say close other tabs, close all tabs, etc. So if you come into an environment and you just want to start from scratch in your environment, so you don't have all the tabs, right click it and say close all tabs. Okay. Of course, with me messing around, there's my tab. Okay. So the next one, activity 2, is we're going to test the threat intel lookup with sample indicators of compromise. All right. So we're going to be using the threat intel app, which we're going to install later on. No results is a good thing, right? But if I'm going in and looking for, is there any threat information on a specific IP address, right? I can say limit 1, right? So I just want to see if we have a hit for that IP address. So we're going to go ahead and create a query. And we're going to go in and say, you know what? I'm going to manually enter an IP address. You could set this up so it's a wildcard. So you can just go in, if you created a dashboard, you can go in there and just type an IP address and automatically fill it and then do the search. But we're going to just use the search language. The next line we're going to be putting in is the IP address as my threat. So I'm mapping the variable my threat and giving it the IP address. And this is where, if you want to get a little more crazy, you can actually make this an interactive where you can go ahead and have them type it in. And we're going to look up in our CrowdStrike threat database, type of threat, who was the actor, the raw data, the threat level. The next line down is seeing if the malicious confidence is yes or no, or does the data exist. Here we see a comment, checks to see if any value is returned for the field malicious confidence, right? And then we map the fields. So let's go ahead and copy that. I can handle copying. So shift enter, give me the line above. And this was, where's my cheat sheet here? First line was limit 1. All right. So I got limit 1. What IP address am I looking for? The lookup to grab the information from the service. This is CrowdStrike. Some logic to say if there's any information that's malicious intent. Do we have any good information on it? And then the fields that we want to place. So again, we click on press enter. Okay. So here we have the dump back of at least, as soon as we got one hit, we stopped, right? So we have at least CrowdStrike was a category, name was HTTP input, the IP address that we were talking to was 34.219, and then we have all this information on the inside. So number 2, optional. If the IP address malicious underscore confidence is null, then it'll return a no, right? So we actually go in here and parse out ordering. So here we have a different order. So before we had fields, my threat, data exist, malicious confidence. Here I'm going a little bit different order.
We have a question in the chat from Roberto. Is the sumo colon or sumo colon / threat / CS, is that always needed?
So that is a service that we provide for free. So you don't have to use it, but it is one of the leading threat service in the industry. And you would need that if you want to pull threat intel. If you don't need threat intel, you don't want threat intel, you just want to do parsing like we've been talking about, then you don't need it.
Thank you.
Is the source out of the box? You need to configure it. It's out of the box. All right. So we've gone in, we've shown how we sort it one way, another way of sorting it. Now the third one, optional, you can also switch the IP address referenced with whichever IP address you would like to check against CrowdStrike. If no data exists, you'll see no, or for the data exists field is going to be empty. So that level of detail, that level of trainings, those would be more on the advanced classes or the full-blown classes. Get a lot more in depth on that type of interaction. Okay. Lab 3. In Lab 3, we're going to install an application, and it's going to be using the AWS Elastic Load Balancing data itself. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go and click on the app catalog. And in there, we're going to search for Threat Intel Quick Analysis app. So let's go to our interface here. And as I said before, let's clean up the mess. So I'm going to go ahead and right click and close all tabs. And I'm going to go on the left-hand side. Now, if you see no black on the left-hand side, if you see Sumo Logic with, some people call this the hamburger icon, options, you can go in here, click on that. And what the lab says to do is go in under application, app catalog. And here you can see all the different apps we have. We have well over 200 different apps, I think at least over 200 apps just for security alone. So we categorize them, you can search them. We have released a whole bunch of new ones, refreshed. So if you're in the security space and you want to see what comes out of the box, I can go to my security line. And here are 8 new apps that we've released over the last quarter and a half. We've released new apps for the AWS Security Hub, so pulling the Security Hub data, Web Application Firewall, CloudTrail, Guard Duty, more in-depth detail on VPC flows. We have connectors now for Linux and Windows. So if you install those in those environments, you can actually pull the raw data from there, as well as Palo Alto. There's a lot of, there's a blog out there on this, and there is some demos that you can take a look at, but I just wanted to point those out to you. But specific to our lab, we go to the app catalog and type in Threat Intel Quick Analysis app. All right. So one second here. I was searching in the wrong category there. All right. So if you did what I did, you didn't have enough coffee this morning. I went into the security and then did a search. Well, it's not in the security folder. So you got to go back up to all categories, do your search, and then you're going to get this threat intel quick analysis. You're going to click on it and click add to library. For the app name, you can change the name if you want, whatever. If this was a longer lab and you want to get back in here, you can put your initials at the end so you can see it later on if you wanted to. We're going to go in and actually define the source category of the data itself. And you'll see it pre-fill as you type this in, the different options, but we're going to go into the labs folder, AWS, and then the Elastic Load Balancer. You can say where you want to save it, and then move on from there. So let's go ahead and do that. So threat intel quick analysis. You're going to click on add to library, and that's going to add all of them. All these categories, all these dashboards. Now, this is where you're going to go ahead and change the name if you want to. Say ELB. The source category will be Labs AWS ELB. Right? You can see here as you're typing it in. So if I just left it off at labs, these are all the different areas I can pull data from. I'm pulling this from ELB. I'm going to go to the advanced. I'm going to say personal. And add to library. So when we go look on the left-hand side now, there's going to be under the personal folder, under apps, you're going to see this as one of the queries. And now we're going to go ahead and take a look at that dashboard itself. So at the top here, left-hand side, top, global library, your personal library, favorites, and then recent. So under my personal library, I'm going to click on that icon. Here's the folder that we just added. Remember we said add application for all of the subcategories. I'm going to click on that. And here are all the different apps. Now, if it's wondering what these the icon color means, click on new at the top. And here's your secret decoder ring. So this red with the lines, that's a log search. And the green with the dots is a dashboard. Okay, so let's go back in there and actually see some of this data. So domain. Threat count, right? So in my environment, pulling data from my Elastic Load Balancer, parsing that against CrowdStrike's threat intelligence, going through that load balancer, I have a threat count of 87. Of the threats, what was the confidence level? Well, they're all high. Threat by actor, unassigned. So, this is demo data, lab data, but it does give us an understanding of what's going on in here. As I scroll down, you have threats over time. The threat table, here we have the domain, malicious confidence, the actor, source. So here we see ELB, but we're saying and showing you the different locations, US East once or US East 2, as well as the label names. This is the information of the attack itself. Now remember, I can go into any one of these and click on this filter icon or the search icon. And here's the search, right? So as we said before, here's our category of the data. Now we do support regex, so from the raw data itself, if you're a regex junkie, if you've been in the business for a while and you know this is just a regex filter that's going to go through and grab the domain and the IP address, etc. Time slice 5 minutes, count, etc. So you can go in here and see what's going on. If I go to that same location, if I click on the filter, here are the different filters we can actually search for. Source IP address, source category, source name, and domains. Anytime you see a filter, that means you have the ability to go and filter whatever's in that part of the dashboard against this criteria. All right. So we've gone through, we've looked at searches, we looked at how this will actually go in and create dashboards. We did some advanced analytics. So this is just a quick review of what we did in the actual demonstration or the class today. If you want to learn more, okay, these are dated slides that we have in there, but we will get you the right slides for the actual date itself. We have some coming up in October. Now remember, to find these, you can go to your home, you can go to learn. This is the canned stuff. You go to the certification, click on get certified. Watch the paint dry. You can go in here and click whichever one you want, and in there you'll see the actual dates of when they're going to be available. So if you want to take training, if you don't want to go through the icons, there's the link. Here's our help docs. And we have 5 minutes left. If there's any questions we haven't answered yet, I've seen a lot of stuff going by in the chat. So Nick pointed out, yeah, that is a good one. Regex1.com. Because regex is a different beast, and if you've been doing log parsing, you have to deal with that, or if you're a programmer. But there's a lot of samples out there. We have a GitHub that's very, very active. So if you don't see the app or the query that you're looking for, there's going to be a lot available to you from sample point of view. We did have a modern SOC summit a couple months back. I believe, yeah, the data is still there. So if we go, so if you want to see the data from the Modern SOC Summit, you log in, and in here, there's going to be a replay. So you can go back and look at all of the recorded replays. The same will be similar for Illuminate, as we've done in the past. We can go there and you can look at past information and rewatch if you want to the different sessions. All right, folks. We got 4 minutes left. I think we're ahead of the game on the different questions. So if that is it, you guys can enjoy the rest of Illuminate. Hopefully you'll attend some more sessions. Again, there is a Cloud SIM session. It's called SOC Analyst The Ride. So if you want to see the SIM product and how that works, that session will be later on this evening. So for this team here, this time of the morning, it's probably international. So that one there is probably going to be in the middle of the night for you. But I believe there's other ones that are being held more in your time zones.